and welcome to ours today, Coffee on Consulting, about the remote work unleashed, a practical step-by-step tutorial. Today will be quite a challenging, I think, a challenging program, but we will go really through all the different remote work setups and see there on a step-by-step basis what needs to be done and whose responsibility is of which matter. I hope you grabbed your coffee and you have coffee or tea in front of you so you can enjoy now the next 30 minutes where we go through the topic. My name is Friederike Ruch and I have the honor to discuss that matter together with you. Before we start, just two things or two administrative matters. One thing is you're all on mute, so nobody can say anything. Therefore, if you have any questions to that topic, then please use the question box and write down your questions to the matter. Either we will discuss it then just after the coffee consulting, after my presentation, or in case you haven't found the time during the presentation to write down your question, we will do that afterwards by email. Also, the slides are now available during the presentation, so in case you would like to download them, please do so. As said, we do have quite a good topic today, and I think a topic which every company has to kind of think about what they would like to do in their own environment with the employee, what kind of remote working they would like to offer their employees, and where are the limits to it. If we talk about remote working, then I think every one of us, the first thing we think about is working from home, which is correct, but it's just one of the possible setups what remote working means. And we see here on that slide, we've tried to put them down into three categories. One is, which we also call as hybrid working. That is really about working from home. Like here, it's the topic of international weekly commuters or cross-border employees. If they are working from home and at the work location or in the office, then working from home is a kind of remote working. And we will look at it in a second as well, what needs to be done in regard to working from home. Is it for everybody possible and can just be allowed without any big issues, or is there the one or the other thing still to be looked at? So what we have put in the category hybrid working is basically really someone working from home as an international weekly commuter or cross-border employee. The second category on that slide you can see is for a limited period. So someone who would like to go on vacation and would like to go a bit longer and would like to work from that vacation place also, where you may, or we can summarize it under the topic of workation. Dream office is also something, or working from anywhere, which you can find in regard to remote working, those kind of buzzwords as well. Dream office or working from anywhere is usually for a bit longer period. Vacation is usually for something like up to 30 days or 2 months, and dream office or working from anywhere is usually for for a longer period. However, it's for a limited period, and it is not the home office where someone would just like to work from. It's from a different place, different location. We also will see in that regard what needs to be done from an employer perspective. And then the last category we have is about permanent. If someone really likes just to work from home and basically not come to the office at all, or just for a couple of times during the year, and that is then what we call permanent remote working. Also, in regard to this, we will look at what needs to be done from an employer perspective. All three categories of remote working, it's possible. Usually, the first hurdle which needs to be taken is whether that is from a technical point of view possible. Most likely, for every job, it is from a technical point of view possible. Administrative wise, most likely also. Legally, also, it just depends a bit then what kind of risk I would like to take, or what kind of cost, the associated cost, how much would I like to spend on that topic. And there then are sometimes the discussion whether something would be allowed or not. Really rarely, just based on legal perspective, you need to kind of forbid something. It's just that the one thing might be more costly than the other way. And always you have to keep in mind from an employer perspective whether you really would like to take on that administrative burden on top of everything else, and whether the need of someone working from home or remotely is really so high that the associated cost kind of is fully okay and can be seen as that is just one thing you have to take on. The challenges we have, and it doesn't matter which category we will look at, are always more or less the same. We have to look at the social security part, whether someone can remain in the home social security system. And home social security system we would view as the social security where the employer is situated. Whether that is possible or not. What is with the coverage? Are there any changes in regard to the coverage or not? Income taxes as well. Is there any change in regard to income tax? Or is there a permanent establishment risk? And that is something which has maybe a bigger influence in the whole assessment, as there are lots of other consequences being triggered in case someone has a permanent establishment. Labor law aspects, like they're usually the mandatory ones at least, we have to look at depending on the length someone is working from the other country, then the more in detail and depth we have to go in regard to the labor law from the country in which the employee would like to work from. Immigration, the individual needs to be work authorized to work in the specific country, so that is something we definitely have to look at. And then payroll-wise, is there a possibility to keep the payroll as it is? Like where the employer is situated, we run the payroll and that's it? Or is there a need maybe as well in the work location to set up a payroll on top of it? And then all the other regulations, like also data privacy and so on, would have to be looked at as well. But those 4 legal topics like social security, income tax, labor law, and immigration, we would kind of focus today, and then as well seeing, because payroll is then kind of where everything comes together, is also an important aspect as well as in regard to administration and cost-wise. What definitely is advisable and should always be done is a real assessment of the situation and clarifying as well all the different questions and questions as well as the facts to a situation in order to make sure the setup you choose or the setup you discuss is really the right one. It sounds sometimes quite easy, but as with everything, there is in the end the detail, the devil lies in the detail. So that is something where you always have to be quite careful and look at. For all the different categories we will now look at, the important question, or the first questions you always have to look at is, who will be the employer during that remote working part? Is there any change to that, or will that remain as before? The nationality of the employee, as well as in case there is the family involved, like if we talk about the dream office or working from anywhere for a longer period, then sometimes the family will accompany as well. Therefore, that factors into it. The duration of the whole remote working, whether that is for a limited period or just a year or on a permanent basis. As well as in regard to if we look at workation, whether that is just for maybe 30 days maximum, or for also there the wish is to work for a longer period in a different country. And then as well the countries involved, like the country where the employee is employed with, as well as then the country or countries he or she would like to work from. And if we have those facts, and this is important for any kind of category we now look at, these are the most relevant ones. We will go through those different categories and really in a nutshell, because we don't have that much of time, but I think it will give you quite a good overview and a starting point maybe in your company for either reviewing whether you've thought about all the other aspects as well, or maybe a starting point to actually think about it and then at a later stage also implement it. The first category would be the hybrid working. And if we can just look at the sample and take it from the sample, then what needs to be done. The sample is Chiara Baldi is Italian national, lives in Munich. She works in Zurich for an insurance company. She can do her job also from home. Based on her job, she needs to go regularly also to their office in Munich. Chiara has received the approval that she can also work from home for 2 days a week. So based on that, she is basically a normal cross cross-border employee or international weekly commuter, could be both, or could be falling into both categories. For working in Zurich, most likely she either has received a cross-border permit or she has actually got a B permit. Because either way, she would need to take up residence here in Zurich, as she can't commute on a daily basis between Zurich and Munich. That would be just too far away. The first question in regard to that hybrid working and whether the approval of those 2 days per week working from home is good, is whether there is a Social Security treaty applicable, yes or no, and whether the Social Security treaty is not just the bilateral one, but either the EU or EFTA agreement. Because basically, it's if we have the EU or EFTA agreement applied to the situation, then in that agreement there is the possibility to, if someone works in multiple locations, that the Social Security should always be in only one country and covering all the work or all the employment income somebody earns. So within the EU or EFTA, it is one location which will be determined by various factors, and based on that, only in that one location, one country, someone has to pay Social Security. So that is definitely the first thing we would have to look at. The next part would be, are there any specific rules based on the double tax treaty which we need to consider, and whether there is a risk of permanent establishment. So that are the major ones. Now in her situation, if we say she is not one of the C category employees, so she's a normal employee, we most likely can say there's not really a risk of permanent establishment with her working from her home office in Munich. In regard to income tax, basically she would have to pay normal taxes to us based on her income in Zurich for the Swiss working days, and for the German working days, in any case, she would have to pay German taxes. So there is, based on the 2 days she would like to work from home, there is no change to that. It's just that with 2 days, she might have to pay a bit more German income tax. From an employer perspective, I just need to make the payroll aware and to kind of set up a good process how she on a monthly basis will inform the payroll about the days having worked abroad, because for those days no taxes to us should be deducted. From a Social Security point of view, it's a bit more difficult because there we have to look now at the number of days she is working in Germany as well. If we say her Social Security liability had been before in Switzerland and she would like to remain in the Swiss Social Security system, then we have to say the 2 days are actually too high or too much in order for her to qualify to remain in the Swiss Social Security system, because she is also regularly working in the Munich office. And therefore, the 50% rule, which had been implemented last year in summer, is not applicable anymore. We have to look at the 25% rule. Basically, that means she can only work up to 25% in average per week in order to remain in the Swiss system. Now, it depends a bit also as an employer whether, for me, it doesn't matter really whether someone is in the end liable to German social security contributions or to Swiss one. If I don't care, then I just can say, yes, I can approve it with the approval of those 2 days. Basically, that means she will become subject to social security in Germany. So what do I need to do? I basically need to adjust the employment contract based on those 2 days, if I approve that, because then she will become subject to German social security. I need to make sure she has the right or has the necessary work permit. In that case, because she's also already living in Germany, presumably she has a permanent residence permit in Germany, therefore nothing has to be done. In regard to payroll, I will have to actually also set up a payroll in Germany in that case, because I need to pay German social security contributions, as well as in Switzerland. I need to make sure that there's no Swiss social security contributions deducted, as well as the person is enrolled in the or only the taxed source will be deducted on the Swiss working days. Social security we have to set up in Germany, and from the tax point of view, Switzerland would deduct taxed source, and I need to make sure I have the right tax setup, and on the German days, German taxation will be done. Also, it would be good to review it on an annual basis and get the confirmation of the number of days and the type of work she is or the individual is working from home. Usually you try to keep someone in the Swiss system, or in the system you have everybody else enrolled with, in order to minimize any cost, as well as the issue of having someone working from or covered under a different social security treaty. Because there it's not just about the paying contributions from another country, it's also then the coverage which will change. And mainly or basically it is about the continuation of insurance coverage with accidents or sickness. Because if we keep that sample we just looked at in mind, for her it means if she is now subject to German social security, that basically in case she has an accident or is for longer term sick, the German rules will apply and not anymore the Swiss ones. So that needs to be kind of implemented as well in the employment contract. And you need to be aware of that there is no equal treatment then from those individuals, from all employees. If we talk about workation, then workation is usually something which is in most of the companies for a really limited number of days being done or being approved. Usually it's something up to 30 days, which we've seen. And if we are within that range, then usually the risk in regard to certain areas is quite limited. What you usually try to do is really to approve workation only if the employee has really also the right to work in that country, meaning either he or she has the nationality, or, for example, you would allow a Swiss person to work in France because based on the Swiss citizenship, you might just have to request or have to do the posted worker notification, and then the individual would be okay. Or you would allow an EU national to work as well in the EU because based on the citizenship, he or she would be allowed to work in that country. So that is definitely the first thing you tentatively would look at. The next thing you usually would look at is in regard to Social Security. As long as there is a Social Security treaty in place, then the individual can work from the other country without any problems. If we put that under the category of the individual is assigned to work in that different location. This is a bit of a gray area, and the authorities are aware of it, and they are trying to find a solution. Now, because of there are so many countries involved, that might take a bit longer until there's a real formal solution in place. As we are staying below those 183 days, and usually you will find, or you will also look at whether there's a double tax treaty in place, and if you are then below those 183 days, then you also have not an issue with from a tax point of view. So the most important part is to define the period, review of the mandatory labor law provisions, check on the necessary work permits requirements, the Social Security affairs, and whether request the A1 or certificate of coverage, as well as check on the international health insurance and advise your employee to take out an international health insurance to be safely and good covered. If that workcation is, and here we have listed down the mandatory requirements from a labor law aspect. The major ones are really working hours, rest periods, public holidays, and the salary level. Usually, if you have someone in Switzerland going abroad or working in another country, in regard to salary level, we don't have an issue. But if you look at other countries, that might be an issue, and you would also always have to look at. The longer someone is working from abroad, the more you have to go really in on all different aspects as well. If we just talk about workation, then those four are basically what you have to look at. If we go longer abroad and we are with in the area of dream office, or someone is going for, here in that sample, for 12 months to work abroad, then we still have to look at the same questions or the same points as we just did with workation. The part of risk of permanent establishment is a bit higher to look at, because someone is then really permanently working from one place. So that comes a bit more into focus. As well as the Social Security and tax situation would come a bit more into focus. Definitely, if you allow something like this, then you do need to make an addendum to the employment contract and check on the labor law provisions in the country, in the dream office country, or in the country wherever the individual works from, a bit closer. You have then to request the necessary work permits, and you may have seen there are already lots of countries which allow that digital nomad visa, based on which someone can work from another country, even there is no legal entity in that country. Social Security is something which has, or which needs to be looked at at a bit closer. Like if we look at the sample of Melinda Santos here, who wants now to work for 12 months from Dubai, there is no Social Security treaty with Dubai. So you need to see whether you just agree on there is no Social Security coverage at all, or you try to find a different solution. So either or, but there is a possibility to have someone working from Dubai for 1 year. It's just a matter in the end as well from cost and how much you would like to invest in it. international health insurance is an issue, as well as then also making sure in regard to tax setup whether there is the necessary implied to. In regard to payroll, if we keep the sample of Melinda Santos in mind, then there would be the need most likely for a payroll setup in Dubai in case there is anything we need to look at, and in Switzerland. In some countries, there's nothing required, and therefore it's an easy approach. And the last category would be really on a permanent basis. And here we talk about you found the right candidate abroad, and then you would like to hire him. He or she doesn't want to come to work in the office, but would like to remain abroad, is willing maybe to come for certain days, certain number of days or certain periods, but not on a permanent basis. And for that, you do have basically to completely set up the situation with the labor law from the country he or she is working from. So the employment contract is then not the standard one where you just make an addendum to, but it will be an employment contract basically with the labor law, based on the labor law from the other country. Also here, the same things have to be looked at, but a bit closer in regard to work permit, the social security setup, the tax setup, and the payroll setup. But basically, it is something which can be done in the beginning. You might need to, or there's the need to get a lot of, or you think it's taking a lot of time to get everything set up properly, but it's once it's really set up, it's worthwhile trying to, and it's easy to maintain. For all those categories which we just looked at is basically really the proper review of the situation, and the assessment in the beginning is the crucial factor. So as long as you do that, and then everybody also knows from what they are talking, then that would be the best situation. The necessary clarifications are really or should be done before the individual goes abroad, works either on a home office basis, like we discussed with the hybrid version, or on vacation or dream office, whatever. Clarify the different topics, because it's easily the situation that there might be mistakes and someone might be not covered in the right country, or taxes are not deducted or paid in the right country, and that then comes to a major issue or problem. Check also on alternatives in case you say that is too high of cost involved or administration involved in order to find a better solution. And then really put down all the different legal aspects. You have to look at the formalities as well, and then list them down and deal with them step by step. And this is also already our quick overview on a very, very high level on the approach of remote working. We hope that you enjoyed it and you found the one or the other aspects you maybe have not seen so far or have not looked at it. In case you have any questions, then just reach out to us and we are happy to answer your questions afterwards. The last minute, I just would like to take the opportunity to invite you to our next webinar, where we go into much more detail regarding remote working, but it will be held in German. And then as well on our next seminar, which will be on the 13th of March, which is about cross-border worker and international weekly commuters, but also held in German. And then our next Coffee and Consulting will be held in March on the first Monday in March. I hope you enjoyed it today, and I wish you a wonderful week and hope to see you soon on one of our next events. Thank you for your attention.